why are you randomly doing cocaine and going to the hospital and then calling your dad and telling him you're fine, but then you call him back and tell him that you're not, you did cocaine. Hi, I'm Ariel. You're watching She Wants the Diction. And today you guys are getting something of a double feature because I have two books to review that are both by men named David. That would be Barrel Fever by David Sedaris and The Film Club by David Gilmour. I guess I'll start off with Barrel Fever. Now, I don't understand this cover. I still don't. Like, is one of these him? Like, I don't know what's happening. He just arbitrarily chose a picture and was like, yep, I'm weird and quirky. Slap that motherfucker on there. I really don't know. I couldn't answer you. It's not explained in here. It's not explained at all. So I don't appreciate that. I feel like your cover should relate to whatever's happening. You're not quirky because you slap something random on there. This is a collection of humorous essays and autobiographical short stories, I guess you could call them. I don't even know if they're long enough to be called short stories. So the book is divided into two parts, except the autobiographical part is much, much shorter than the, like, essays. It's a really stupid, mindless read, I feel like. He puts his characters in very, like, absurd situations, and his writing is very, like, punchy, so it's a really fast read also. The story that the book is named for, Barrel Fever, deals with a man and his friend. The friend stops hanging out with him because he realizes that he's an alcoholic and he's going to, like, AA meetings or whatever, and the whole story is him trying to get his friend back and convince him that he's not an alcoholic, very ironically because he is an alcoholic and his alcoholism gets worse throughout the story. So just kind of like absurd random things happening. So like he's very good at keeping your attention, but it's like he has the same kind of voice in all the stories and they're all written from the first person. So I think that maybe his style could have worked better for a novel because he's very good at maintaining one voice. And even the stories that weren't supposedly from his life or were like made up sounded like it all sounded like him. Like he was writing from that same place. And honestly, it reminded me a lot of Post Office, Charles Bukowski in general. One of the true stories that he has in here is the one that made him famous, which was Santaland Diaries, where he talks about working as an elf in New York City at Macy's during Christmas time. And I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty hilarious. I feel like I tend to like things where people are working at a job and then they write something about it that calls out the absurdity of whatever it is that they're doing. Like, I love shit like that. Having worked at a ridiculous place myself, like, I love that. And I guess that was what got him famous, was that he was invited to read that story on NPR. And if you actually go and listen to him, he sounds a lot like a very intellectual Piglet. Like, honestly, he sounds exactly like Piglet from Winnie the Pooh. Like, I'm not even kidding. Just like soft, gay, smartass. Like, if I had to describe it in like 3 words, which I'm pretty sure he is gay, like 90% sure, because a lot of these stories deal with being gay as well. I would not call him the most hilarious writer in the world, which I saw that kind of floating around a bit when I was looking things up. And there's a couple things in here that were like borderline rubbing me the wrong way. I couldn't decide whether it bothered me or not. For example, there's a Vietnamese girl who's a character in one of the stories, and I don't know what to say. There was a story where he talks about mentally challenged kids, except I'm pretty sure it was common then to call them, like, you know, the R word, whatever. But I didn't really like that. There's a character who has a literal copy of Mein Kampf. I don't know how to say it. Hitler's biography. You know what I'm talking about? Mein Kampf, I think. There you go. Yeah, I don't know how to fucking speak German, I'm sorry. Like, you could argue that some of these things were just like elements of the story. I don't know. It's like they didn't quite say anything outright racist or wrong, but it was also just kind of like, I feel like you're edging that way. It's kind of one of those people where you feel like their jokes maybe could turn really quick. Like, I don't know how to describe it. So I didn't like having that feeling at all. I can see why people love that style because he's great at keeping your attention. Like, I don't think he's like screamingly hilarious, but definitely like a couple laughs, and I did appreciate a couple of the stories. Moving on to The Film Club by David Gilmour. This is a memoir in which a 15-year-old kid is failing at school, and his dad lets him drop out on the condition that he has to watch several movies a week with his dad. But really, okay, and they don't tell you this is just a washed-up film critic feeling the need to impart all of his knowledge, his great vast knowledge about old ass films. So basically he's trying to impart all this knowledge to his son. He's out of work, unemployed, but kind of just letting his son like drop out of school. And I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to that aspect, but it made me a little uncomfortable. Like, okay, you would think it would be a lot of like them bonding, and it is, but most of it is about them talking about his son's relationships, and then him being a super judgmental, kind of like sexist fuck. His son has one girlfriend who is a Vietnamese girl and is really good looking, whatever. Basically, his son introduces her to him, and then later after she leaves, he asks his dad, oh, what did you think of her? The exact quote on what he said, I think she's a troublemaking little bitch who loves to torment you. Excuse me? Just because she's dressed nice and she looks good and she's flirting? I don't understand. It's just like he characterizes her before he even knows her. And another annoying thing about the dad is he keeps constantly trying to get his son from not making these like relationship mistakes, because he thinks that if he tells him, oh, well, this is the thing you should do, that he's going to listen. Of course he's not, because he hasn't had that life experience. You can't stop him from doing things that you deem in your 60-year-old or however old you are wisdom to be stupid. It's like you have to let a child or a kid like be a kid. Like you can't, I feel like all parents make this mistake where they think they can stop their children from having bad experiences. You can't. All you can do is give them advice, and usually they don't listen. Like they haven't learned, and you have to learn by experience. You got to learn it by experience. Like there's no way around it. And I feel like the dad just expected him to like skip all these like bad relationships and stuff and just jump straight to whatever his future was. And it doesn't work like that. Let's see the borderline just racist thing that he said about same girl. How perfect I thought the straight A Rebecca, I don't know what her last name is, NG, I don't know how to say it, should be having a fully realized love affair with a high school dropout. Wasn't that just what her parents had in mind when they fled Vietnam in a rowboat? This guy is not like the most likable, and that's an understatement. Yeah, so the whole point of the book isn't even the film club. It's just to talk about, basically, it ends up being just talking about his son's relationships. And I don't care. And the way that they talk about the relationships to each other, like, A, they drink with each other. I don't know how old they are, but when he starts out, he's 15. So I'm like, and they smoke cigars, and like, it's like, y'all are a little too close. Who tells their parents they did cocaine? Who tells their parents they had sex? Like, what is this relationship? That just seems like that just seems weird to me. I'm sure there's a middle ground, because I feel like I grew up the complete opposite. Don't tell your parents anything. Like, we're just both in the dark. But I'm sure there's a middle ground between this, oversharing, and telling them nothing. I don't know what that middle ground is, but I assume somewhere in there is the actual healthy parental relationship that I don't know, but I have an idea about what it should be. And then also the ending's really rushed. So until the last chapter, that's when his son magically starts writing songs and goes back to get his GED and gets homeschooled by his mom and decides to go to college and make something of his life, all in like the span of 3 paragraphs. Buddy, you should have been building up to that the entire book. That was the point of the book, and you just lingered in this one phase, and you weren't going anywhere. You weren't going up the mountain. It was just even worse writing in here, because it's not even funny or clever, or there's no characters that you're rooting for. The son is just kind of like, what are you and what are you even doing? Why are you randomly doing cocaine and going to the hospital and then calling your dad and telling him you're fine, but then you call him back and tell him that you're not, you did cocaine. Like, there is not a character in here that I liked or wanted to root for. I didn't get any of the movie references. Like, trash. Back to the Goodwill. I don't even fucking know where I found this, but back. Like, I would give this like no star, like 1 star. It's like barely a book. Like, at least this had like some semi-redeeming qualities, a point to it, or it was funny. Like, ooh, fuck. I'm telling y'all, books by mediocre white men. I hate life. I really do. So those are my terrible reads. Have you read any books by someone named David lately? And were they bad? That's what I want to know. Jesus Christ.